So we're back, and in this video what I'm going to do is speed up everything so that you can kind of see how I go from this mess to a set of clear fonts that are geometrically focused in shape. And so what I'll do is just get started, and you can watch the progress in high speed, and then at the end I'll talk a little bit about what the next steps will be. Okay. Letter A, which I already had, and then the letter P, which very much looks like the letter B, and you can see me using some basic shapes and some alignment tools to get everything to line up. And then I'm heading on to the letter C, which is going to be a circle, and I figure a circle and another circle should give me the little cutaway that I'm looking for. I'm lining all of these things up on a line just to see how they're all going to look. The D, as you can kind of see, is kept as simple as possible, which is my kind of focus for this process, is keep it simple as I can possibly be. Now the letter E is a little difficult, so what I was thinking is maybe using the triangles to pop out a couple of the edges, and then that would be something I could repeat for the letter F. As you can kind of see, the fact that the triangles are not exactly aligned or overlapping is causing me some difficulty in Shape Builder, so I'm using the Align tool until everything is aligned correctly. Now with the letter E, as you can kind of see, I'm also able to create the letter W and the letter M all at the same time. And so starting with that letter E, I'm also able to create the letter F. I noticed this little divot right here just because things weren't aligned perfectly, so it was important for me to get rid of that because I want these shapes to be as solid as possible and without any issues. The letter G I thought could be something that's based off the letter C, and so I got this, but then I had a couple of extra dots there, so getting rid of that created something that looked like a G, and upside down G, by the way, will be the J, is what I was thinking. For the H, I'm kind of just, again, working with blocks and removing the negative space from the little blocks. And now I've got the letter H, but I also have the letter I. And there's the letter J, as I was talking about. Now the letter L, I wanted to give it the same blockiness as the other letters, so using the letter, using that vertical I is the way I went. Now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because I'm trying to just try to figure out how a K can be made with what I've got, and the letter N as well. And so here's where I'm just experimenting around until I got something that I think kind of worked well with what I've physically made. Letter O and P obviously are going to be the most basic shapes possible, and Q I thought would be similar to the G, except I would use a triangle, and that would kind of like reinforce that whole G look. And then the letter R is just the letter P, again looking for letters that are similar, and then seeing if I can add on to or remove something from those letters. And you remember this form from the letter B that I made, and I thought, well, I could use the same concept for the letter S. And so what I'm doing is creating two shapes, and you'll see in a moment as they get black that they do in fact create a letter S. And the hard part again is always making sure they overlap so that they can become one solid shape. There's letter T and U, which is just an old D. The upside down letter, the upside down triangle is the letter V. X is just a cross, and then Y I'm going to go ahead and fix in a moment, but it'll be just like the letter V, only with a stem. And then the letter Z is something that I think I'm having some problems with here. I'm fairly not satisfied with this final letter. It's supposed to look like a Z, but again, it just feels a little bit awkward compared to some of the other forms. What I'm doing here is just playing with what it might look like visually compared to the other letter forms. And you can kind of see me kind of like having a little bit of an issue just getting things to overlap so that it becomes one solid shape. And then being dyslexic, I had to make sure that it's in the right orientation. But I think what I finally achieved was something that's good enough for the letter Z, which is this. But again, it's super important that these things overlap, so when I use the Pathfinder tool that it's one solid black shape. And then this is me playing with the letter, I think Y, or no, the letter X. And so I'm like thinking, okay, well, no, the letter X is actually already done. So this is me just playing with the letter K again. Oh, and trying to see if the letter K would be better off if it was a lot more simplified, like the letter K with just a single opening. But I found that the K that I had created earlier was just better, so I went ahead and kept that. And here is me playing with the idea of, like, you know, popping out some negative spaces from some of these heavy letters like the letter A or the letter O. I wanted to see if visually it would be more interesting, but then when I looked at it from a distance, it was like, no, this is going to mess up everything. So I took that away. And then here was the letter Y that I finally fixed, getting rid of all my stuff now and just kind of aligning everything to the bottom, making sure it's all sitting correctly. Okay, so as you can see, I decided not to use any ascenders or descenders. I kind of made that conscious choice, like, while I was designing. I also decided, as you were watching, probably you noticed, that most of the letters, let me see, I'm trying to get everything to kind of like be aligned correctly. So let's just select all these. And you notice most of the letters do not have any holes in them, and that was, I just didn't think that it worked with what was going on. I really love the stark heaviness of these letters. So again, very geometric. If I could simplify, I tried as much as possible. I'm trying to get these all to be aligned here. That looks good. Some of these, yep, tip is good. Okay, so this is my final alphabet, and then I will go ahead and create a pangram using that alphabet. And just to prove that these are like in good shape, because I used Pathfinder, I'm going to go ahead and flip the, hopefully flip the outline here to black, and then the fill to clear, and then we'll see if there are any issues, as you can kind of see right here. Click away from it. And so these are the solid pieces. Just noticing no issues. I'm going to make all the strokes correct. Let's take the strokes and bring them to 0.25 so we can see everything stroke wise. There, I'll make it a point so you can see it. And so these look really good. You can see that when we're selecting them, the outlines are very clean. There's very few extra points, no overlaps, nothing weird. And this will make for a really easy to use or create font. And there are some, I think, issues that with like some pointy elements here, but they look pretty clean. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that that is done. So as you can kind of see, it took a little bit of time, but I got through all the letters. And so for the pangram, I would just start by just selecting these, inverting them again, and then going ahead and just, you know, creating the T H E, the, and then continuing on quick. Okay, and that's it. Just wanted you to like be aware when I was creating some of these letters, like the S, I was just playing around, tried to use the same form for the Z. The X seems like the only one that I might like approach again and make a little bit more basic, but I think it's also not so bad. The W is the upside down letter M or the letter E, so you notice how you can create these forms and just use them over and over, like the D and the U are identical, the A and the V. The letter O and the letter Q just have different tails. The upside down G is the letter J. So again, try to save yourself a little bit of work. If you see the letter shape in one of the letters you're designing, just do it over and have fun. So this video, according to at least my QuickTime thing took me a total of 40 minutes from start to finish. I had the idea in my head, but so it's not an impossibility. Of course, you know, I've got a little bit of ability to work with this program. Now remember, when you're ready to export these guys to the program itself, to the Glypher program, if you're going to actually create fonts out of these, you got to get rid of these lines here, and this has to be a super clean document. So what I'm going to do is unlock those lines, and I'm just going to remove them because they were my guides. And now this right here, these shapes right here, as you can kind of see, they're perfect shapes, they're single shapes, there's no doubling up, there's no overlap. Those can actually be exported to Glypher and turned into a real font. Otherwise, you can actually create posters and such just doing it this way, saving this PDF or saving this AI file, and then in the future you could always use the letters in Illustrator as a font that you've designed. And there's no other fonts on the planet that's going to be exactly like yours. Remember, you'll be kerning everything by hand, but when you create it in Glypher, the program itself will have the kerning possibilities, so you can actually kern certain letter combinations, like the letter Z and the letter A here. You can see they kind of overlap a little bit to tighten everything up. So for instance, those are called letter pair kernings. So for certain kernings, like the letter V, you want that to overlap with the O. You can kind of see, but you don't want it to overlap with the E. So the line stops here, but you can kind of see when I just select the letter V, the V itself is overlapping slightly with the letter O, and that just gives it visually a really interesting look. And the same with the Q and the so there are letter pairs here, and as a professional like typographer, you would actually be doing the kerning for this font in Glypher with letter pairs. So you have to actually come up with all the letter combinations that you think are going to need that type of like overlap. It's not necessary. It can just be a mono spaced font, which means that everything is identically spaced, and that's up to you. All right, I hope you have fun with this project. Again, 42 minutes to go from this mess right over here to a finished product, and then a pangram. And these are what I'll photograph and upload to my Behance webpage.